Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Surge here with our final episode of the Buddyfight Cross Vanguard Deck Guides. Today's release day, so we are covering the last deck, which is Ikazuchi and the Parade of 100 Demons. So let's get into it. Alright, so I'm going to say up front that this is the deck that I am the least confident in, because I didn't spend that much time labbing it out around the set's release. I did spend a bit of time though. And it is also by far the weakest of the Buddyfight decks, and therefore has like no results to pull from. But this is what I have cooked up. So let us talk about the basics of Ikazuchi. So first up, as ever, Buddyfight is not going to give you a draw when you're going second. It's not going to give you energy. You will instead be using a gauge resource, which you get 2 from the top of your deck at the beginning of the game. And at the beginning of each turn, you'll be able to take a card from your hand, throw it into your gauge, and draw a card. As a result, good discard fodder is very important in Buddyfight decks, because to keep your gauge resource up, while you ride up to grade 3, you are effectively going to have to discard 6 cards instead of the normal 3. However, on this front, Ikazuchi's no slouch. Ikazuchi has some really good discard fodder. So let's go over those real quick. First up, we have the arms, the weapon of the deck, Thunderclaw Narukami. That can just be played from drop, so you are fine to discard every copy of this you see. Our Regalis of choice is either going to be Twin Cast or Fire Regalis. That's also completely fine to discard. These set orders, we're only running one of each, because the card that searches them can pull from drop or your face-up damage zone. So you are completely fine with discarding any of these as well. And then Akishoki is a really fantastic discard fodder that can be played from drop by paying a gauge. And you bind it, draw a card, search your deck for any Thundermine card, drop it, and then shuffle your deck. And if your damage zone has 3 or more cards, you draw another card. So all of these 10 cards are fantastic discard fodder. These grade 1 Thundermine 1-ofs are also really good discard fodder as well. So you are just swimming in cards that feel good to discard. This is a deck that plays from its drop quite a bit. Honestly, a lot of the grade 2s feel completely fine to discard as well, because of Ikazuchi's grade 3 effect, which is act once per turn. You can counterblast 1 and choose up to 2 non-sentinel 100 demons that aren't Yamageto with different card names from your drop and call them to your rear. So like any of these 100 demon grade 2 or less, you are going to be able to toolbox to your heart's content, so you feel pretty comfortable discarding any of these. On top of that, he also has the spell ability, 100 Demon Sorcerer Evil Pulse. You pay a gauge, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and retire it. So you just have this endless board control capacity, which is nice, but less relevant in Buddyfight only. But there is still some usage we can get out of that based on the specific nature of this deck. And of course, against stuff like Tatsuya, you can use it to like force out a discard by targeting Omnidai. You can clear out the Byakuya from the front row of a Katana role player. You can clear out any no-soul jackknives that Jack calls. There's a lot of stuff that's like solid enough for you to get rid of. Then we also have our buddy. This is always going to be the buddy in this deck. Great Fiend Yamageto. It has a call cost of pay 2 gauge and put 1 or more, but up to 3 100 Demon Rearguards into its soul. It gets the Thundermine abilities of all cards in its soul. At the beginning of your main phase, you take a Thundermine card from your drop and put into its soul. It has Thundermine once per turn. When this unit's attack does not hit, if you have a Vanguard with Ikazuchi in its card name, you choose one of your opponent's Vanguards and it gets power minus 5,000 until end of turn. And then it has double attack, counterblast 1 to restand at the end of its battle if your grade 3 or greater Vanguard is standing, and Soul Guard. So this is the most key part of your deck. This is how you're getting your multi-attack. And frankly, you really want to get onto 2 of them. But nothing in the deck really helps you get to Yamageto. Like, you have all these ways to dump cards in this deck, but literally none of the cards that are able to get stuff back from your drop can add Yamageto. So if it goes to the drop zone, you lose it, but it shouldn't ever be going to your drop zone until you have 2 up already, because of the fact that that it has Soul Guard and it's going to continually refill Soul every single turn. So you should be completely fine on that front. For the rest of the ride line, the grade 1 is when placed on top of Parade of 100 Demons, you look at top 7 and dump a card from among them. Oh, I forgot to talk about the flag. Since this is similar to Dragonine, you can use any 100 Demon race cards. The crossover you get with other deck support is much lower than with Dragonine, because 100 Demons is a much more specific attribute. But it is still like you have this cross support with Ein in Pizarro is the main one, and stuff like that. But you dump any card from the top 7 with the grade 1, which is not fantastic. Like, it's useful enough. That is like useful enough. Like dumping Akishoku is really good, for example. But it's not +1. It's not like a guaranteed +1, so it's not fantastic. Dumping Fire Regalis or Twin Cast is also really good. The grade 2 is run road on top of the grade 1. You look at the top 5, choose a Thundermine ability card from among them and put it into your hand. This is your only way of digging through top X for copies of Yamageto. So if you see Yamageto here, you almost always immediately grab it. And yeah, that's it for the ride line. So let's talk about the rest of the deck. So as established, Yamageto is super important. It's how you get your 5 attacks. You really want to get multiple on the board, so that you can threaten your opponent with multiple of these Vanguard drops. And also, if you get any copies beyond those 2 that you need on your board, you can then start dumping them to the drop zone, and those can then be put into Soul at the beginning of your next main phase. And that way you will be able to stack even more copies of the Thundermine onto your board, which is pretty good, because outside of being able to drop your opponent's Vanguard power, the numbers that Ikazuchi puts up are very unimpressive. Other than that, we have, of course, Pizarro. Pizarro can tap itself to draw a card, cannot move, and then at the beginning of your battle phase, if you have a Yamageto on your rear, it restands itself. Pizarro is just the best fodder we have for Yamageto. It's not like Ein, where there's like options from the Gao deck that we can use as good fodder. No, it's really only Pizarro as a really good fodder option. So it's what we really want. And its restand is online a lot faster than it is in Ein. So that also helps. Dunstan, we talked about him before. He just has he has a call cost of 1 gauge, and on place, you search your deck drop or face-up damage zone cards for any 100 Demon set order and put it into your order zone. So let's go over those real quick. There's 3 of them available to us. We have 100 Demons Formation, Thundermine Stance. You can only have 1 copy of each of these, by the way. So when it's in your order zone, you pay a gauge and you revive a grade 2 or less Thundermine ability card. And if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, it gets power plus 5k. This is one of the only ways in the entire deck to get power on our board. Shrine of the Corrupted Fujigami. This is a classic from original Buddyfight that was like a key part of this deck. Once per turn, when your rear guard with the Thundermine ability is placed, you draw a card. Still really good. Still really good, because like we're not running that many Thundermine cards, but it's enough, especially in combination with Thundermine Stance that and Ikazuchi's effect, that we're always going to be playing them onto the field. So that's pretty good. I mean, you can potentially place this down on turn 1. Immediately start benefiting from it. Probably not until turn 2 in reality. But even that is like pretty early to start getting the recurring value from this card. And then lastly, we have Starved Yamageto. You can only put 1 Starved Yamageto in your order zone. And this card is way better than its original counterpart. So in the order zone, when this is put into your order zone, or when your damage check reveals a card, or when your unit is retired from rear guard, which of course includes playing on top, you pick 100 demons from your drop and put it into your gauge face down. So gauge gain sources that don't take from the top of your deck are extremely valuable. Just so valuable. And like as a reminder, original Star of Yamigeto from Buddyfight was only procced when a monster was destroyed, which was pretty good. But this procs way more than that. It gives you way more gauge, like just invaluable, especially when deck out is such a concern. In these Buddyfight decks, this card is one of the best things the deck has going for it because it effectively gives it like infinite gauge and means that like once you have this up, you can probably just stop charging and drawing because you really won't need to anymore. So that's really, really fantastic. That's a super good card to have. And the fact that Dunstan is able to put these set orders into play without you needing to play them from the hand, and thus eating up your order use for the turn is really fantastic when we have orders as good as Akishoki and Thunderclaw Narukami. So Thunderclaw Narukami is a grade 3 normal order arms that is played from drop, just directly from drop. During your turn, all of your front units get power plus 5,000, and you once per turn choose one of your rears, retire it, and it gets critical plus 1. That's not very difficult to keep going because we have like so much revival stuff. Like you can of course like think of this as just like, okay, I have my set order set up, so I'm going to pay 1 gauge for Thundermine stance, revive something. Then I'm going to draw a card off that from Fujigami. And then I'm going to retire it with Thunderclaw Narukami, and get the gauge I spent back. So once you have that sort of setup going, it's effectively free, which is really fantastic. Really, really nice. Then we have, okay, so we've gone over that. What else do we have to talk about? The grade 2s, one last grade 2 to talk about is Xeon. This card's pretty nice. In original Buddyfight, this card sucked ass because it was very low power. Like it was way below the threshold of what you'd be expecting out of a grade 2. But here it's just like normal grade 2 power level. And it still has its old effect, which is pay a gauge for calling it. And then when placed on rear, you get a grade 1 or less Thundermine card and call it to rear. So just really good at building board. Super, super nice. Lets you turn Ikazuchi's call 2 into call 3 instead, which is super nice. Super, super nice. Also, it's a pretty solid card for you to turn into a Yamigeto. And then we just have our grade 1 or lower Thundermine techs. There is a grade 2 and a grade 3 Thundermine card that you can potentially slot in here. But I think overall it is better to be on, like you can potentially take out the Xeons for it is, let's pull them up real quick. Thundermine. The 2 missing ones I have not put in here are Zamazenta and Reiki. You can totally take out Xeons for these 2 cards. These 2 cards. They are Thundermines that trigger when specific grades are placed, which is pretty solid. It's solid enough. And you can get them into the Soul of Yamageto, which works out. They're not my big preference. I'm not huge fans of these cards, but they're all right. They're all right. So almost like especially in main format, in core Buddyfight format, getting the reductions on the grade 2s and grade 3s isn't as valuable because those are probably going to have Soul Guard, and you're going to have a harder time clearing them out and thus forcing your opponent to call new ones for you to Thundermine. But these are still like solid enough cards in core format that I would say would be worth trying out and trying to find slots for. So let's go over these Thundermines. This is every grade 1 or lower Thundermine carrier available. First we have the grade 0 Hasted Evolution Yamageto. This is when your opponent's grade 3 or greater Vanguard attacks. You just get to minus it 5k for free. Really nice. This is a Thundermine that I think might be worth running at multiple, so that you can like have multiple on the field or multiple in the souls of your Yamigetos. It's just some free extra shield you get. Unfortunately, it's once per turn, so if your opponent has a multi-attacking Vanguard like Gold Ritter, you're not going to get that power reduction on the second swing, which is really unfortunate. We have Armor Knight Evil Eye, which reduces the shield of an interceptor by 5k once per turn, which is alright, gives you a bit more pressure on your swings, especially into stuff like Thunder Knight's Drum in this format. We have Glacial Bolus, which is when your opponent's rearguard's power is reduced by your card's Thundermine ability. If you have a Vanguard with Ikazuchi in its card name, that opponent's unit gets power minus 5,000 until end of turn, and then you can Counterblast 1 and draw a card. So you're basically never going to have the Counterblast available to draw, unfortunately. And also, unfortunately, this only triggers on rearguard's power being reduced. So when this reduces the Vanguard power, or when Yamageto reduces the Vanguard's power, it's not going to trigger. It's only going to trigger on these two, or Zamazenta and Riki if you run those over the Xeons. Honestly, yeah, let's just make that trade. Let's just make that trade, to be honest. I think that is actually ultimately better. Yeah, that is ultimately, like, actually better, like, in the long run. I don't think I would bother with Reiki in Buddyfight only format. I would maybe drop this for, like, a second tasted evolution. But yeah. Then we have Peluda, which drops the power of a grade 1 rearguard when it's placed. This is the one that you're going to be getting the most value out of, because the grade 1s aren't going to have Soul Guard. So you're going to be able to clear them out and force your opponent to call new ones pretty frequently. And then we have Stranger Dilemma, which is when your opponent plays in normal order. If you have an Ikazuchi Vanguard, you can just get to pick one of their rear guards and give it power minus 5,000. Lots of normal orders going around in this format, so lots of opportunity for you to use this. Like, all of the arms are all of the weapons are normal orders. So this is a pretty valuable one, especially in Buddyfight only format. And it's like the only rearguard reducer that doesn't depend on your opponent calling new stuff. You can rejig this Thundermine lineup however you want, really, to get more or less of the ones you find less valuable, depending on what you're expecting. But these are the options available to us. I think all of them are, like, decent enough. None of them are super great, but they're like okay. They give you a bit of an extra defensive backbone. They give you a bit more pressure on your swings in the case of Armor Knight Evil Eye, sinking the intercepts. It's like some alright stuff. I will say, in main format, I would probably just completely drop Evil Eye, and put up one of the other cards, Thundermine cards. Because, like, in Buddyfight only format, intercepts are something for you to care about more because of all the Soul Guard running around. You're not going to be able to just clear them out. But in core format, Ikazuchi's ability means you're just going to be able to get rid of an intercept. And unless they have multiple intercepts, like that ability isn't as valuable when Ikazuchi is able to actually retire front rows with its effect. That said, this is probably not going to see a whole lot of success in main format, so do bear that in mind if you do take it into main format. But Evil Eye is definitely less valuable in main format. Alright, so what else do we have to talk about here? Nothing much, really. We do have the Blitz Order Perfect Guard. I actually forgot about this one when I was talking about the other ones. But this one is actually pretty good. You can only use it if your Order Zone has Parade of 100 Demons, so you can't splash this into the other Dragon World decks, which is unfortunate because it's quite good. After Perfect Guarding, you just get to pay a gauge and choose one of your opponent's rear guards and sink it by 5k. So it's just an extra 5k shield, which is really awesome. And this doesn't apply to Buddyfight only at all, but it's until end of turn. So if that rear guard in particular has a mechanism of attacking multiple times, you get to just double dip on that benefit. That does actually matter into Jackknife, because it means when they're going for their Dragonic Punisher turn, you sink whatever they're clearly attempting to go for that double swing with, and you'll get that minus 5k benefit on both of the swings, which is very nice, very, very nice. Unfortunately, this is not a Thundermine ability, so it will not trigger Eliminator Glacial Bolus, which would have been really good, but it doesn't. It does not do that, unfortunately. Quite sad, but it is what it is. I'm really upset about how they butchered some of these cards. Like this actually costing you Counterblast for the draw and not working with Yamageto.
Hasted Evolution is supposed to have an effect that searches for a Yamageto, and calls it, using itself as the fodder, but it just doesn't have that effect. It just isn't there. But whatever. It is what it is. So for the triggers, you may notice I have a bunch of vanilla triggers here. Obviously, with our current understanding of the BCS rule set for the Buddyfight only tournaments, our current understanding is that we're not allowed to use nationless cards from outside of the Buddyfight set. We are very close to the first event happening, so we will find out for sure this weekend if that is correct, or if it's going to turn out that they just go, no, you can actually use other nationless cards as well. I will probably do like a post-tournament video with Chang or someone, or just do something solo. Just talk about like how that first event goes and giving the update on that specific detail, because like that's the one thing that was like, I really wish I could wait until after the set drops to do these videos, but I want to have them all available on release day, so it's like I can't. But like, I would have really liked to have complete clarity on that detail, because we just don't right now, and we really won't until we get to that first event. But I would normally just run vanilla triggers in this deck, because the 100 Demons crits aren't very good. Rinu Ryusho is, you choose one of your rears, retire it, and you get a gauge. We really aren't struggling for gauge at all, because we have Starved Yamageto. Starved Yamageto is basically just an infinite gauge machine, and we don't have that much gauge spending once we get our Yamagetos up. Like, getting the Yamagetos up is the main way we are going to be spending gauge in this deck. So once we achieve that, like, we really don't need any extra gauge gain. So like, we will be completely fine on just Starved Yamageto. And then we have the Dragon Energy clone. This works for Wild Dragons, an attribute we really don't have right now. It's an Ancient World attribute primarily. I doubt we'll get much of it, because Wild Dragon is like a niche attribute that I doubt we'll be touching at all. But it can also give plus 3k to 100 demons. Unfortunately, this is much less relevant than it is in other Buddyfight decks, because our main attacker is a grade 3. So like, even if like if we give it to Yamageto, like, one of its attacks is going to be solo, but the other isn't. So it's going to make no difference on the numbers there, unless our opponent is on grade 2 still. That's the only time it'll really matter. And if you give it to its booster, it's not really going to matter there either. So it doesn't really work out. So we just might as well run the vanillas that we can call as boosters in a pinch. Then we, of course, we run damage control because of the 20k front. There's nothing we really need soul for at all here. I don't think there's a single soul cost in the entire deck. Yeah, there's like literally 0 soul costs in this entire deck. So we really don't need that. The trigger order we really care about, though, is this heal. 100 Demons Destructive Power Rega. So this is, when you play as a normal order, you choose one of your rears, retire it, and you countercharge 1. This is our only access to countercharge outside of the Buddy Call, and this deck is fairly counterblast heavy. Once you get the double Yamageto set up, both of them want to counterblast every single turn. And if you want to like fill up your board, and benefit from that, you want to be spending counterblast on Ikazuchi as well. Like keep getting your Thundermine stuff up. You can put up like Bizarros every turn. Swap them to front, rest them, and then retire over them so that you can swap them back. So stuff like that is pretty valuable. So it is pretty good to be able to use this Ikazuchi every turn, even after you've gotten your setup. And the only real way to do that is if we have Power Raiga to countercharge. So this heal is actually super important. The crits don't really do anything, but this is a really important card for the deck to have access to. Like, just having access to that emergency countercharge is super, super nice. All right, that's it for the deck. So we are going to hop into some gameplay demonstration now. All right, so let's get into some gameplay examples. So we're on grade 1. So immediately with Ikazuchi's effect, we're going to get to look top 7, and get to dump any card we find there. So in this case, we hit Ikazuchi, so that's really good. We can also like look for any of our grade 1s, dump that. That's the main thing I want to demonstrate here. Oh yeah, Ikazuchi actually works too as well, actually. Yeah, actually, Ikazuchi works super well for this example. So let's go back in there. We dump Ikazuchi. So we're not going to be able to do a whole lot with this on this turn, but we can still use the Akishoki by paying a gauge. What do we got in there? Sorry, I guess. Oh, no, not in there. And we will get to draw a card, and then we will get to, oh, it's just shuffled. We'll get to draw a card, and then look for any Thundermine card and dump it. We have Xeon in this deck still, just for a moment, so that I can demonstrate any stuff involving that. We can dump any of our Thundermines, which is always going to be one of our grade 1s, of course. So we'll dump this one, for example. So so we go into our next turn. If we have a grade 1 available, we can like do some early game pushing, but that's all we're really doing there. We're just getting some setup. Akishoki's live already, stuff like that. So we go into Superhuman Might Ikazuchi. So we have a number of options here. Also, if we have access to any of our set orders, we can play, I believe, all of them on that first turn. Yeah, all 3 of them are grade 1. So if you open any of them, you can just play them out immediately. I don't think that's a good enough reason to run more than one of each of them, given how findable they are with Dunstan. But if you find any of those 3 cards in your opener, then you can just keep it and establish it right away, which is very nice. So going into grade 2, we have the ability to, for example, let's say we have Xeon in this hand, right? So we can go Xeon, and with Xeon effect, we can bring back any of the grade 1 or lower Thundermines, and we just have a free column here, right? So that's pretty alright. Of course, if we have Dunstan, it's also really good to have early, because Dunstan is going to go, okay, I'm going to just pay a gauge and immediately get into play one of your one of these 3 set orders. And all of these are really high value to have. You like the core of your card advantage is really getting all 3 of these into rotation. But no matter what you do on this grade 2 isn't going to hit for much. It's never going to be as impressive as stuff like Drum's turn 2, or Ein's turn 2, or Zonya's turn 2, or Tetsuya's turn 2. All of those decks have really impressive turn 2s off of really like a single card, a single specific card. Jack has a pretty alright one too, but it's pretty comparable to like yours. I don't think Xeon is worth just for this early game stuff. So I do think I still agree on like not actually running this and just running a couple more Thundermine cards. But yeah, it's really the most impressive thing we can do on turn 2, except for the actual thing is that like I think the thing that actually makes it maybe not worth it to run Xeon is that if we just see Dunstan, we can play the Thundermine stance from our deck. We're just going to put all of these here for the sake of having them here. And then the same line we did with Xeon, we can just pay a gauge with Thundermine stance and call it that. And if we opened like either Thundermine stance or Corrupted Fujikami in our opener and we're already able to set up the other one, then that means we will get a draw off this as well, which is pretty good. Not a super impressive turn 1, but like a decent enough one. Then when we go into our turn 3, we are of course going to want to use our revives to continue to set up the set orders with Dunstan, so that we can get that draw engine and that gauge engine, that revival engine going, and we are going to feed whatever into the Yamigeto. I really think you only need to feed 1 card into the Yamigeto. And like the ideal is we get a setup like this, right? Let's put a Bizarro in here because that's the other ideal fodder. And also have the Claw available.
And that will give us a front row buff of 5k. Ideally, we also have at least like we also want to have ideally like a lineup of grade 1s so that we have our full boosting capacity here. And then it goes something like they'll be on grade 2 at least. We go 18, no, 2 damage. We want here 18, counterblast 1, restand, 18, counterblast 1, restand. And hopefully by this point they have guarded at least 1, which means they are down to 5k. So then we get 26 with a crit from the Narukami ideally. And then I don't know if we had the double Yamageto set up, then guarding once means they have dropped down to 0, and then these numbers become pretty scary. At that point, these numbers become very scary because this fully works against a grade 2 opponent. So we can very easily be looking at a scenario like this where it's oh, this is also power plus 5k, this is also power plus 5k. Release one for 18 first, probably against a 10k. Hopefully get them to guard at least once. If they don't guard there, they're almost certainly guarding on this swing, this 26 swing, at which point they will drop down to 0. And then we get to go 26, 26, and those are pretty impressive numbers, swinging on a grade 2 Vanguard. But it does require us to see one of our other Yamagetos, which is a bit of a tall ask when the deck doesn't really have any methods of digging for it. And then when we're on Persona Ride, it's just the same stuff. We don't have anything that really turns online from our opponent being at grade 3 or greater. So it's just going to be the same thing. It's just that our opponent will be on grade 3, so they will instead be dropped to 3k instead. So we're hitting for 1 stage less, but overall the numbers are very, very similar. We're looking at very, very similar stuff. And yeah, each turn we're able to load up the Yamagetos with more soul, potentially get the ideal is we get to the point where we have all of our Yamagetos either on field or in the soul. And at that point, when our opponent blocks a single attack, they are at negative 7k, and it becomes very difficult to guard. So the numbers aren't the worst thing in the world, but there's just a lot of awkward things with the engine of Ikazuchi. The fact that you really have no way to find your Yamagetos. If your opponent does clear them, you're in a really tough time because you just can't get them back. Like if you're in main format against like a deck that has a bunch of mass retire and they're able to do that, like you're pretty much cooked on the spot, because you really can't. It's a really hard to recover from that position if you lose one of your Yamagetos, because again, you just have no way to get them back. Just despite all the drop zone toolboxing the deck has built into it, none of it is able to access Yamageto for some reason. And you have no like ways of digging directly for Yamageto outside of your grade 2 ride line card. Hasted Evolution doesn't get Yamageto for some reason, despite the fact that that's exactly what it did in its original form. Very frustrating design with the Ikazuchi deck, because like the minuses that the Yamagetos represent is like kind of scary. It is like pretty threatening, especially as your opponent gets higher in damage, and especially with the crit pressure that Ikazuchi himself has, which basically forces your opponent to guard at that point, and thus take the big minus from the Yamageto Thundermines. It's just like the process of getting to those Yamagetos is just not very good. And that's why this is ultimately the weakest of the deck. But there is still some stuff here. Like, I wouldn't hate the idea of taking this into a Buddy Fight only event. It does have some stuff going for it. It is still a 5-attack deck. Unlike Gao, it is still like able to do its multi-attack when your opponent's on grade 2. And in that position is very threatening. But there are some like major weaknesses with this deck's engine that make it like not the most recommendable thing in the world. But there is, at least in the context of Buddy Fight only, I do think there is some stuff going on here. So I don't think it's the worst choice in the world. Like it is still like not an ideal choice. It is definitely not one of the top 3 contenders in the format. Like this multi-attack stuff, of course, has the problem of, oh, my opponent's Sonya, and they just go, okay, I'm gonna guard. I'm gonna stop your Yamagetos from restanding. Godspeed. And then of course, this aggression stuff is like less valuable against Tasuku, because Tasuku gets up Gold Rooter and then has a 20k base. If I recall correctly, let's pull it up real quick from this Tasuku deck. I'm glad I chose Tasuku for this. Did it? Oh, yeah. So you're just cooked against Isuku, by the way. I forgot about this part. I completely forgot about this part. Yeah, you're just completely cooked against Isuku. Because once they get Gold Rooter up, Gold Rooter has this effect that says your Vanguard cannot be chosen by your opponent's card effects. And this Yamageto effect, this Yamageto Thundermine has to choose one of your opponent's Vanguards. If you're against Isuku, you just lose on the spot. And Sonya gives you a really rough time because of the restand blocking. And like, because that means by time you get to the swings that your opponent's really forced to block, but they're probably blocking them if they're using the snake cases here. But by the time you get to the big high pressure attack, you're done. You're potentially done for the turn because they could have just double snake gazed.
Especially if they're on like a 4 snake gaze build, which gives them much higher consistency of like having a snake gaze naturally and then using Zonya to get back a snake gaze. Like, you're just cooked. You're just cooked at that point. There's really not much you can do about that. Yeah, this deck's rough. I forgot about the Gold Rooter thing. The Gold Rooter thing just completely cooks you in that matchup, and that's one of the top contenders. And Zonya is also really hard for you. Kyoya puts up way greater pressure, and your early game is just not good compared to like most of the other Buddyfight decks. So like Ikazuchi is definitely struggle street. Like, there's definitely some like okay-ish offensive stuff going on with the Yamagetos. But it's not super great. You don't have a ton of power gain. You're really dependent on the Yamageto power sinks to get your power to anything decent. And if you're against Gold Rooter, you just can't do that. So you're stuck with these baselines of like swinging for 28 solo, 36 boosted into a 20k base Vanguard that you just can't sink at all. Real struggle street. Cannot recommend Ikazuchi too strongly because of these flaws. But if you really like the 100 Demons deck, and boy, believe me, I understand. I love that deck. There is like some okay stuff here, but understand that it's going to be very rough into Tsuku, and Zonya is going to be really rough for you too. Kyoya might be a bit better, but like you have to deal 7 damage to them, so they can just take more of your hits and be less inclined to give you the power sink. They have that additional plus 15k on a Quilta. Just have a really good engine in general, so they can give you a really rough time because of that as well. But that's going to be it for me, and that's it for the Buddyfight decks. I hope you guys all enjoyed. As I said, I hope to have one Mei Chengu on for like a post-Houston report, talking about like the format and like how that nationless thing panned out. But until then, I'll see you guys later. This is Hunter Surge signing off.